Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here.
Good to be with you, Maria.
This whole time we've been talking about all these subpoenas that you and your colleagues have sent out. They're just going to blow them off, aren't they?
No, well, I mean, he's not coming today, but I do believe he will be in. Our lawyers are talking, both the oversight lawyers and Judiciary Committee lawyers are talking with the legal counsel for Mr. Biden, for Mr. Schwerin, for Mr. Rob Walker, for all these individuals who are involved with Hunter Biden. Kevin Morris, the guy who paid his taxes, we think they will come in. We think this is, there's the back and forth that typically takes place. He's not coming today, unfortunately, but we do believe he will come in. And we think it helps us, Maria, when in fact the full House votes on an official impeachment inquiry, which we think is going to happen within the week.
Well, you would think that the Biden family wants to clear their name. You all have been out issuing, lots of warnings and certainly exposing lots of evidence in the way of emails, witness testimony, and bank records. And you would think they want to come out and say, look, what you're saying is not true. So why don't they?
Well, again, I think they will be in. You think they want to clear their name, but I also think there's part of this whole process where they just want to run out the clock. I mean, that's certainly what happened, or what looks like has been happening with David Weiss and his investigation into Hunter Biden. It's been 5 years, for goodness sake. Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler, the IRS whistleblowers who've come forward, they've indicated that this thing was slow walked. We've deposed 8 different individuals who were associated with the Hunter Biden investigation. None of them have refuted anything that Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler brought forward. So I think there's kind of these two competing. One is you think they want to clear their name, but also there's this real focus on trying to run out the clock. We're not going to let them. We're going to get these individuals in. And I think, as I said before, we're going to move forward with an impeachment inquiry vote sometime in the full House within the next week.
So you're going to do the vote for the impeachment inquiry, formalizing that within the next week. Do you believe you have the votes?
I do. We had a conference last week on this particular subject. I thought that conference went well, where all Republicans were in there. We talked about it. We presented what we think are the most compelling facts and evidence. We told the story. Again, I think this story is best told. It's a story as old as the hills. You got a politician who takes certain actions. Those actions benefit his family financially, and then there's an attempt to sweep it under the rug and conceal it. And that's exactly what happened. Joe Biden did certain things, particularly when you think about the Ukrainian energy company Burisma, that benefited his son, Hunter Biden. And then, of course, David Weiss tried to sweep it under the rug. And but for these two whistleblowers and a brave judge, a court in Delaware, I think they would have got away with it. But these whistleblowers came forward and gave us so much good information, and we've been able to follow up on that, and we're going to continue to do that. And as I said, formalize the impeachment inquiry.
And let's hear from those two individuals, because the House Ways and Means Committee held those closed-door testimonies with IRS whistleblowers yesterday. Lawmakers revealed never-before-seen evidence showing then Vice President Joe Biden used alias names, to send and receive at least 327 emails from Hunter Biden and his accountant, Eric Schwerin. 54 of those emails were directly between Joe and Schwerin. The timeline from the committee shows email activity between Schwerin and Biden jumped around Biden's trip to Ukraine. 5 emails exchanged in a 3-day period before the June 2014 Ukraine trip. Then another 27 emails before Joe Biden returned to Ukraine that November. And we ran the sound bites of the whistleblowers earlier. They actually spoke to the public after they emerged from that closed-door meeting. Do we have that soundbite, Caroline?
When they saw the $5 million wire go to an investment fund with no investments, and that they knew that the Bidens had all these shell accounts, and they mentioned that in the email, these accounts where they weren't real businesses, they were just like dormant accounts. You get a huge $5 million wire in, so they obviously reach out to the president's son and say, Mr. Biden, what is this $5 million wire? We need to know, or we're going to have to notify the Treasury Cabinet of a suspicious activity report. He said, oh, that's a loan. And they're like, a loan from China? Okay, well, we need the loan documentation so that we can have that in the records for the bank examiners. And they said there were no loan documents. So the bank knew right away. China didn't send someone in the United States, especially the son of a vice president of the United States, $5 million as a loan without any loan documentation or without any terms of the loan.
My story has not changed, and I have further backed up testimony with hundreds of pages of documents and oral and written testimony. Hunter and his associates provided access for wealthy foreign individuals located in Ukraine, Romania, and China in exchange for money to enrich a well-known political family.
I want to tell you that there is more than enough evidence to support the continued investigative efforts of the congressional committees engaged in a review of my claims. Witness testimony, documents, and actual events such as a failed plea agreement have proven our disclosures were accurate.
That was incredible, Congressman, to hear those whistleblowers.
Yeah, and again, their testimony has not wavered. Their story has not changed, but the White House's story has changed multiple times. The David Weiss and the Justice Department, their story about how this investigation unfolded has changed multiple times. So, and I also think those emails you pointed out, Maria, they're from that critical time period, 2014, 2015, when I think this whole influence operation started, in particular with Ukraine. So I think that's pretty darn valuable evidence that the whistleblowers brought forward yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, Congressman, you know that the public would like to see accountability already. I mean, you know, we don't even see an impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, the one guy who's in charge of the wide open border. How are you going to bring accountability here? James Comer, Jason Smith released an interim staff report. You accused the Department of Justice of giving Hunter Biden special treatment. You accused the DOJ of allowing the statute of limitations on certain charges to run out. You said they withheld evidence from investigators, all while tipping off Hunter's defense counsel about pending search warrants. I mean, you know, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy pressed the FBI Director Christopher Wray about this, about the handling of the Biden laptop story before the 2020 election interference. And he had an answer for that, too. Watch this.
Why didn't the FBI just say, hey, the laptop's real?
The FBI cannot, especially in a time like that, be talking about an ongoing investigation. And we have to be very careful about what we can say, especially in the middle of an election season.
I mean, this is one of the reasons that you all wanted to hold back money for their new big headquarters. They're getting that headquarters, Congressman.
Yeah. It's one thing to say we can't confirm, but you can't do the opposite, which is what they did. You can't go out and tell big tech that, oh, we think there's going to be a Russian influence operation happening. We think it's going to be in October, and we think it's going to involve Hunter Biden. So you can't kind of pre-bunk the whole thing and float this narrative that makes it then likely for everyone to believe what turned out to be a false story, that it was Russian misinformation, some operation. I mean, that the 51 intel official said. So you can't have it both ways, Mr. Wray, which is what they tried to do. So, yeah, why not just come clean with the American people? When that story broke on October 14th, 2020 in the New York Post, why not just say, yes, we have a laptop. There's nothing that indicates this is a Russian information operation like they tried to peddle, like Joe Biden's campaign peddled. Just be honest with the American people. We're big boys and girls. We, the people, can decide who we want representing us. What we don't need is the government assisting a false narrative 2 weeks before the most important election we have.
Well, the New York Post out with an editorial this morning saying if the bank of Biden shenanigans sound suspicious, it's because they are. Follow the first family's money. They write this: for a man who once claimed to be the poorest man in Congress, Joe Biden sure likes to loan out money. The board also slammed the media in a different column. Washington Post quotes Hunter's laptop. Yes, Hunter's laptop to defend him. They're actually quoting the laptop now. Congressman, it's really tough to watch your colleagues on the left defend all of this. Do they not recognize that these are serious national security risks? The fact that we could have a commander-in-chief that's compromised? To hear Dan Goldman brush it under the rug, to hear Adam Schiff lie the way he lied during the Russia collusion story on television, I don't understand. How do they not? Are they representing the people, or are they representing Joe Biden?
I think it's just pure politics, and they're going to defend their guy regardless of the facts. I do think it's important to go right back to the beginning, and I think this all started in February of 2014. Elena Baturina, the wealthiest woman in Russia, has dinner with Hunter Biden. Joe Biden meets here in that spring. She meets here in the United States, but in February is when she first sent the money. February 14th. 6 days later is when Russia invades Crimea, and and then there's sanctions, and Baturina miraculously escapes any sanctions. And then maybe most important, 1 month later, April of that year, Baturina is in Italy with Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, and the head of Burisma, and that's when Hunter Biden gets put on the board of Burisma. That all happens when this thing starts, and I think shows the connection, the money, the influence, the idea that she's not going to be sanctioned, and then Hunter Biden getting put on the board of Burisma.
Yeah.
That's when this whole influence peddling thing starts, and it continues all the way through 2018.
Mr. Chairman, I got to say, I don't know about that, because I remember back in 2013, even way before that, when Joe Biden, as vice president, signed off on having thousands of Chinese companies listed on the New York exchanges, NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, and they were allowed to list in our capital markets and not follow the same rules as the SEC has, that regular companies, American companies, have to follow the audit rules. So how come Joe Biden allowed thousands of companies to trade in the United States and not follow SEC rules?
Yeah, great question. I think Chairman
was he
Comer,
paying for that? Did it start back then? Those stocks are still in indexes, and that has enabled American investors to fund the expansion of communist China.
Yeah, it's scary stuff, it's particularly when that document that Chairman Comer released last week from the Asian American Bank, which talks about how China wants to, have influence over politicians' children.
Right.
It's not so much maybe Hunter Biden shaking down some Chinese company. It's more Chinese company, Chinese government trying to influence how our government operates, and potentially at that point, the guy who would maybe become president. And obviously, it turned out that's the case. So.
Yeah.
That is a real concern.
Unbelievable. Thanks very much, Jim Jordan. We're going to be following your work, and thanks for exposing all that you already have.